Andrew, look at my new cat. This is Smokey.
Did you get Smokey at the Humane Society?
We got him at the Anti-Cruelty Society. There's one that's like maybe less than a 10-minute walk from our apartment. So we got him, and then it started like downpouring when we were walking back to our apartment. He was not happy about it.
I bet.
Although there is this, we were walking across the street and we had the box and it says like just adopted on the box.
Hmm.
And this guy rolled down the window of his car and yelled at us and was like, "Congratulations!" And we're like, "Thank you." And he's like, "Is that a cat?" And he said, "Yeah." And he went, "Yes, you're being so sweet."
That's wonderful.
It was so funny. I was like, "Wow, it's like getting a
Wow.
child." We have three other cats, and one of them is not very excited.
Yeah, Wally, we've had Wally for probably 3 months now, and it took a while for Alfie and Barry to
Yeah,
tolerate the new cat, but they're cool with him now. I mean, Wally mostly just keeps to himself, but it's fine.
they're all orange, aren't they?
Yeah, they sure are.
Yeah, two of ours are orange. They're silly. Anyway, I suppose
Anyway,
we should stop talking about cats unless, you know, there's some cats in this.
I don't think so. So, concerning the actual movie,
Mm-hmm.
I'm struggling with the problem that most of these scenes, other than the scenes at the beach, all take place in one location.
Mm-hmm.
And so making that
Interesting.
visually interesting, yeah, and not just repeating shots over and over again. And so
Mm-hmm.
I've been talking to Andrew about a couple of different ways we can make it more interesting, but then my fear on the opposite end is part of this project and part of Sylvia's reflection of the world is that she feels confined and that she feels trapped. And so one of the ideas we played with, which was each conversation she has would be in a different kitchen. So you'd kind of just at least get a mix up of, different locations and that sort of thing. But my only concern with that is it might feel, and maybe this isn't even a problem, is it might feel too open because Sylvia feels so very confined in this space, right? It feels almost like a prison.
Mm-hmm.
But so it's kind of like these opposing things where on one end we want it to be visually interesting, right? We don't want it to be boring to shoot in a kitchen just for like 2 hours is a lot. But then on the other end, you also want to capture that sort of terror. Have you ever seen Jean Dielman?
Mm-mm.
So it's really boring. It's incredibly boring. It's this 3 hour movie that has like three characters in it, and it's about this middle-aged woman in Bruges who basically lives a day in her life. And so you watch her do the dishes, you watch her clean, you watch her cook, and the whole film is about this sort of constraint. It's about the terror of boredom. So it works in that film, but the film is purposely extremely boring. And so
Mm.
I don't know if Andrew and I are capable of making something or perhaps willing to make something that's purposefully boring, which I mean, it can work. It's just, I don't really like the movie, but it's currently Sight and Sound's like number one movie. So obviously a lot of people do, but I don't want to do something just because people like it. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, I want it to reflect, Sylvia Plath's mindset. So that's kind of the struggle we're having with that. As far as the beach goes, I think we have a couple of good locations in mind, which will probably be either in Santa Cruz. There's a really good beach, or there's a couple of beaches off the Oregon coast. So like that part, I'm pretty confident about. It's more the interiors, which of course we can shoot anywhere. And Brandon's trying to figure out where is most cost effective to shoot, including
Hmm.
like tax incentives and stuff. But I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, do they do all the scenes have to take place in a kitchen? Is it like very important that the setting is like a kitchen, or can it still be confined to like a house, but not necessarily be just the kitchen?
Well, so the thing about it is, right, it's the final hours of Sylvia Plath's life. And in Sylvia Plath's final apartment,
Hmm.
the kitchen is closed off from the rest of the house, which is important because she
That's
has
where
to,
she kills
that's
herself,
right,
isn't it?
that's where
Yeah.
she turns on the gas stove and
Hmm.
completes her death via monoxide poisoning. So part of the idea of this is in the very opening scene, she turns on the stove, and then the whole right film processes through that. So if we have her walking around the house, I mean, I guess I don't know if it really matters, right? Because like the historical accuracy of it isn't that important, but it is important that so when she turned on the stove, her kids were sleeping in a room close to the kitchen,
Hmm.
and no one else was in the house. Ted Hughes, her husband, had already left. They had been separated for a couple of months now. The au pair had left for the night, and so really the only one in the house was her. And if the au pair hadn't found her within the next 2 hours, the children would have died too.
Mm.
So I don't know. I mean, yeah.
I wonder if, and I don't know, maybe this would be like too, I don't know if it would sort of mess with this sort of vibe you're going for, but like, what if throughout the, I almost said play, um, throughout the film, the kitchen becomes like distorted?
Mm,
Um, because I think that might help subconsciously register with a viewer, that sort of it's like getting closer and closer to
yeah.
like the end. It's either representing what's going on in her mind, or like physically, like it's starting to degrade a little bit because she's like, breathing in more and more of this gas and stuff like that. I think maybe if there would be, because that would also give it a little bit of a way to be more visually appealing,
Mm,
or not necessarily appealing, but interesting.
right.
Um, and that could also help like um viewers understand like a passage of time,
Yeah.
because I think there's not much of like an indication of like, I think it would help like sort of not really ground, but potentially ground like
Hmm.
the fact that while she's still talking to all these people or whatever, like she is still actively like she is in the process of like dying.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that might be the best way to go instead of trying to find multiple locations, just finding one
Which I know
location.
we
Yeah.
talked about like briefly when you were talking about trying to figure out where to do this. Like
Mm,
if we build our own
hmm.
little set in like, I don't know, wherever you could do it, like a garage or something. Um, then like all of those things we could just manipulate them however we wanted, versus like, um a B&B or something like that. We'd have to be very careful about what we did.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we could, I think building our own set might be easier, and we would definitely have a lot more control. We just have to find a space. I'm trying to think of like a space that would be best.
I know you said you wanted to do it like over the summer or something like that,
Yeah.
right? I wonder if if universities aren't in session, if
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know, this also would be like a big ask, I suppose, to like borrow a black box or something like that, or like rent a black box from somebody, like a black box theater, and then just build
Yeah.
the,
I'm just build this up.
yeah. Because potentially, like, if we got a black box theater and they had their own lighting equipment, if they would, this is obviously very potentially a reach.
Yeah.
Um, but like, we could set it up kitchen, no roof, all of the
Right.
overhead lighting stuff potentially. That would be like best case scenario. That would be like phenomenal.
Okay.
But
Well, I'm
and then
talking to.
also,
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, it's okay. I was just gonna say that like if that were a possibility, it would be much easier to manipulate the lighting and manipulate it in sort of more creative, not creative ways, but artistic ways, I would say.
Hmm.
Like, instead of just being like, okay, well, here's our key light, here's our fill light, everything like that. Like, if we had like a full, you know, grid of lights, you could throw gels up in there and have a wash of a different color or something like that while you're filming so that you don't have to do everything in post.
Yeah.
Although I think you said you wanted to do this in black and white. I
In
don't
black and
really,
white.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we could always still,
Yeah. I'm talking with Lauren next week. I know there's a lot of things that Lauren has to do before, but I can talk to her about starting to look at, because she has to contact like the we have to contact the estate of Sylvia Plath, and we have to get
mm,
some rights for a couple of different songs and stuff. But yeah, let me talk to her, and I'll talk to Brandon too about like, because it might actually end up being cheaper to rent out a black box. But yeah, like you said, it'll probably have to be at a university, because I mean, there's quite a few theaters in town here, and a lot of places. But I know renting out theaters is really expensive because they
yeah,
got
it
because
can
they're
be.
businesses. Yeah, so
Yeah, I mean, they're businesses, but since it's in the summer, there's probably like a little bit of a higher possibility that there won't be stuff happening.
mhm.
Um, because most theaters and obviously universities, they have a dark period, and usually it's in the summer before all the fall season and Christmas season starts. So,
Yeah, let me reach out to some people. I might even reach out to my old film school, because I know they have like a proper set, and in the summers I don't think they use it for anything, so they might be willing to rent it out too. And that'd be in Denver,
mhm.
but I mean, I've worked in there before. It's nice. The only thing is it gets really hot in there,
Mm.
but it is built
Well,
specifically for films. So
yeah, like a soundstage,
yeah, it's
sort
a
of
soundstage. Yeah,
cool.
yeah, it's a pretty good size. I think we could. Yeah, so I'll have Lauren reach out to some people, and I'll reach out to some people. I mean, we're not shooting for another 2 years, so I'm sure we have time to figure something out.
But
Okay.
yeah, I think like in regards to visual interest, like manipulating the physical space she's in, and then maybe by the end of it, have it being like potentially like barely unrecognizable,
Hmm.
you know? Like
Yeah.
you could just see like, oh, well, this is the stove, obviously, because it's like a box that's that's the stove. But like everything could be sort of like distorted and fucked up a little. I feel like it would be sort of interesting to go for, since it is going to be in black and white, sort
Mhm.
of like really exaggerated sort of imagery at times, like even German impressionism, sort of like,
Sure.
you know, the cabinet of Dr. Caligari, sort of
Hmm.
like, stuff like that. I think would be kind of cool. Like maybe especially maybe not at the beginning, obviously, but like especially like towards the end if everything was sort of like harsh contrast and jagged edges or something like that. You know,
Hmm.
yeah. I think that would be something like that. Maybe so it can like a little bit of like a tonal shift or something like that. Like if you took a still from like the very beginning and then one from the very end, you'd be like, are
Right.
these the same films? Yeah. Yeah. I think something like that would be interesting to play around with.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and having that control would be pretty helpful. The only thing is we'd have to hire people to build the sets and such. I don't
Look,
know.
you just get a handful of theater people, you put them in a room, and something will be built. If you get, have you talked to Kevin much? But
I haven't emailed him yet. I was going to, and then
that's
a ton of
okay.
shit happened.
Well, Kevin also, so Kevin's main thing is design in
Hmm.
theater, and he is very, very good at it. So
Okay.
he could sort of tackle the logistics of designing
Okay.
like a set and stuff. One, because he does have that like theater background, but also he does have a film background, so he would be able to, you know, combine those two things and be like, okay, well, this is how you would in theory have to put it in Vectorworks and then build it, but also it needs to function well for film. So
Yeah.
he could probably um he would be somebody that I would feel would be able to do a really good job.
Okay.
Um and he also does lighting design too. That's like his big thing. So
Hmm.
um yeah,
Okay.
that's a big
Yeah.
thing as well.
I'm gonna email him today before I forget, because
Okay.
that would be.
Yeah. And then I would I mean, Kevin and and then I mean, I do know a couple other people who are very good at like building things and have done it for like theater and stuff like that. Um, Obviously, most of those people are like based in Indiana, but um,
Mhm.
like I mean, at least Kevin and I, like, I would be willing to pick up a drill and use a saw and stuff like that as well. I mean, I'm assuming that like a lot of the stuff isn't going to need to be functional.
Right.
Besides like, I don't know, I don't know what you would want to be functional. Um,
I mean, we really don't need anything to be functional other than, yeah, we really don't need anything to be functional. I mean, obviously, we need to have some like basic functions for the oven, but otherwise, we don't really use, at least in the script now, we don't really utilize any of the other, like the fridge or the cupboards or anything like that.
mhm. So when it says that she turns on the gas, what exactly like is she turning on the gas to the oven or to the stovetop?
She she turns on the gas to the oven and stovetop, so she turns them all on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I feel like that one, because that's such a recognizable sound, at least with like the stovetop,
Yeah.
that it might not need to be like something because she doesn't light it obviously. So
No.
she
Right.
just turn it and you could hear the like click 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 sound of like
Yeah.
the gas. Um there's this just reminded me, there's this one German movie that forget what it's called. Um, but it like in the end, she like you see somebody like turn on the gas, but they don't light it, and
Mm-hmm.
then they're like, "Oh, let me light my cigarette," or something like that. And then literally the whole house explodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the oh, here we go. Here's the thing. I wrote about it so I can try and figure out which movie it is. Yeah, I think it's uh Dia de Maria Brown, which is like the marriage of Maria Brown. Um anyway, it's good. It's this whole thing. It's directed by Fassbinder.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's an old German film, but yeah, that's literally how the ending is. The whole house explodes. It's insane. You see like the little bit of like the gas trails or whatever, like above the stovetop, and then it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's insane. So that's how this movie is gonna end. Just a massive explosion.
I want the speaking of the ending, so I want the ending to be, I'm trying to think. I know I can't remember what movie this is. They do this in, I know they do in John Dillon, but I know that's not the movie that I'm thinking of. But I want the last scene to be, so if we get more surreal, right, as the different scenes take place and so on and so forth. I want the last scene
Hmm.
to be in the original kitchen, the very first set we
Hmm.
have, and it would just be Sylvia Plath. So it literally be a 7 minute take of Sylvia Plath succumbing to the carbon monoxide. So it's just like it's a still shot, right?
Damn.
Slow push in of Sylvia just succumbing to the carbon monoxide poisoning. That's kind
This
of how
is
I envision the last
after
shot.
she talks to other.
Mm-hmm.
So um there's like this way the exterior beach scene. Do you want that one as well, or
Yeah. So
you know what we could maybe that like radio play that I told you about?
yeah.
Um what if like we allude back to the exterior beach shots just through audio alone
Mm-hmm.
and have it stay on her in the kitchen, but then you hear the sounds from the previous
Yeah.
beach scenes, waves
Yeah. I,
crashing and stuff. Like maybe the beach scene soundscape gets louder and louder and louder
mm-hmm.
until you can't hear her anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that might be the way to go. And my only I really like the beach scenes,
Hmm. I do
but
too.
my
Ooh,
only yeah.
maybe we can uh cut like back in between, like have flashes of the beach where she's doing exactly what she's doing in the kitchen, but like on the shore. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just like quick cuts between them. Like you just see like maybe a second or two, like a frame or two of the beach.
Yeah.
And it's like it would be difficult, maybe not too difficult, as long as we made sure that the actor did like had very specific like blocking.
Mm-hmm.
Um Although the actor could reference whatever they did for the previous scene while we were shooting the other one, but like
Right.
have the angle pretty much be as like have the actor fill up as much of the frame as they did in the other one, like try and mirror it exactly the same, so that like when you cut it, you can obviously tell that it's in a different place, but like the actor is pretty much the same,
Mm-hmm.
and then like have that like glimpses of like the beach if you
Yeah.
want like that visual, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. My only concern with the beach scenes, which again is goes back to what I was talking about earlier, is it's such a confined space that we're trying to create, and just the sense of overwhelming.
But this is how she's freeing herself, isn't it? Like in a sort of idea.
Yeah,
I mean, it's never like really a good thing
right.
to consider like suicide as like a form of freedom, but I think for her, it is sort of her only way out.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's how she sees her. I mean, she sees it as an escape, right, from everything. But
And I don't think though it would come across like to an audience as this being like, oh, like I don't think anybody would see that imagery and be like, oh, well, the people who are making this film are applauding her for killing herself, or like, yes, Slay Queen, you get out of that situation. Like I don't think anybody would. I think it would be like, oh, you know, uh, this is because it's from her mind, it's from her point of view.
yeah,
Um, and if she was like, this is my only viable option to get out, then like, obviously we're not like saying cutting to her running down the beach exalting, like she's still very much dying, but like there's still those glimpses of like, this is like the freedom that she wanted, even if it is death, like she's
mm,
still dying, but there's maybe glimpses of like the freedom or whatever that she feels on the beach. Because I don't think like the incorporation of like the beach scene in the inn could be overwhelming. I think it could just be like uh a few times to like remind the audience of like these previous scenes,
mhm,
um to like tie in, because I think it would be good because I do like the last scene that you have written. I
mhm.
think it would be good to like cut back to that and reference that and not get rid of it completely, and then like there's no harm in trying that at least, or writing it and filming it and then realizing and editing that it's just not
Yeah,
working
that
out
we
the way
can
we
cut.
wanted to.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I guess we can always just cut it in post. We'll fix it in post.
Yeah, always. That's what we do with everything. Slap a band-aid on it and post.
Okay.
But I
Yeah.
definitely think if anything, like maybe having that auditory recall back to the beach would like at minimum be something that we would probably have to do to
Yeah.
keep to like that sort of like, because then if you don't recall back to the beach, then it's like, why have those scenes at all?
Hmm.
There's no resolution to them.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if we decided on this or if we talked about it, but everything black and white except for the beach scenes, was that it? I don't remember what we talked about.
That's what we talked about last time, but no, I'm not sure. I might want those to be in black and white too. But I do want a different aspect ratio. So for the scenes inside the
Hmm.
kitchen, 4:3 aspect ratio. And then for the beach scenes, I'm thinking like a 2.35, super wide aspect ratio.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I might want to keep it all black and white, but I do want the different aspect ratios just because it's kind of like, right, when she's on the beach, there's sort of this expanse, right? There's expansiveness to it, but that
Mm-hmm.
expansiveness is, well, it's also like freeing, sort of. It's also just as terrifying. Like I want the there's just as much terror, right, in this vast empty
Mm-hmm.
expanse of the ocean as there is in this. So, in that sense, like, which I guess works, right? Because she thinks she's escaping, right, this place to this other place. So like
Mm-hmm.
this confined space, this open expanse, but the open expanse is just as terrifying as the confined spaces, right? It's an illusion that either one is better or worse. They're both awful. It's
Equally as
just,
terrifying. Yeah.
yeah, they're just different perspectives.
Yeah. I think it'd be interesting to like reinforce that like sort of emptiness because that's like she it seems like she feels the emptiness no matter like where she is.
Mhm.
That like last image maybe is on the beach, but like from really far back. Like she looks absolutely minuscule on the beach, and the beach is just completely like
Yeah.
beach in the water is like overwhelming.
Yeah. And I think we should, I think when it comes to all of this stuff on the beach, I think we should shoot wide. I don't want to do any close-ups on the beach. I think we should stick pretty wide whenever we're on the beach, just
Mm-hmm.
because I mean you really can't go that wide inside the kitchen anyways, and so there's gonna be a lot of tight shots and
Close-ups, yeah.
close-ups. So I'd prefer that everything on the beach is like we pretty much shoot it. We don't do any close-ups on the beach. Pretty much everything is pretty wide, and yeah,
Yeah. I really want, I don't know where it would happen, but I want a bird's eye, just like I just want, I don't know when that would happen, but I kind of just want it
like on the
somewhere.
beach.
Yeah, sure, why not? Like, I don't know, yeah, maybe on the beach would be fun. She's she's dying, bird's eye view of her or something. I don't know. I just like that shot. I specifically like it inside buildings, but obviously it's a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
But I just like that shot. I just think that they're fun. And we could get a drone on the beach, fly it around
I mean, it would be a good excuse to buy a drone.
for this one shot.
We gotta have it, Brandon.
We have to have it. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah. But I am thinking all handheld for the beach and then sticks for the stuff in the kitchen. So,
Yeah.
which I think is the best way to go about it, because I kind of want that almost, obviously not like Evil Dead handshake, but a little trimmer, right?
Yeah.
Whenever she's on the beach, to kind of create that sense of
Yeah.
anxiety, and not being able to grab hold of anything.
What was that one action movie that was like entirely handheld? Um, like running around, and I bet if Andrew was here, he would know it.
You would know. He knows
And
all the
like
movies.
he does. Let me look it up. It like very specifically, not even that it was just like, oh, it was all handheld, which I think is, lots of horror movies are handheld because you're fucking
Yeah.
running around all the time. But it was like very specifically like first person handheld running around. And like I remember like watching a clip of it and was like, man, I'm gonna throw up. Hardcore Henry.
Oh, that movie that was shot on a GoPro, right?
Yeah, something like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
like
I remember when that came out.
and I just remember watching clips of being like, God, I'm gonna throw up.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Much.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, I can't do virtual reality either. I feel like I'm gonna throw up. But yeah, not like that kind of
No.
shaky cam.
The speaking of cameras, the camera I'm currently thinking about is
Mhm.
the DJI Ronin 4D. It's a whole rig, uh, and I think DJI has, in my opinion, some of the best rigs. So it would be
Mhm.
super smooth. Uh, it's got, I mean, it can shoot up to 8K, which I don't know why we would shoot in 8K. We probably shoot in 4K, but
So that we could see everybody's pores.
I
Yeah.
think that's the one I'm leaning towards, unless you have a different camera in mind.
No.
No.
I-
Okay.
If I would have to like learn how to use any camera that
Yeah.
you would suggest, so like unless it's a DSLR, like
Right.
any sort of film camera, I'd have to mess around with. So it's whatever you want to spend your money on.
Okay. Yeah. So what I'll probably do is probably January. I will buy the camera and I will have it sent to you so you can have time to play around with it and figure out, what you need because it comes with a 35 millimeter lens, but we might want to get some other lenses too. So, you can play around with all the things involved with it and, kind of get into the nooks and crannies of it, as it were.
I know you don't like color for some reason, um, but I just keep thinking about this. Have you seen any of Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities that's on Netflix?
I haven't seen any of them.
So, do you know much about it? I don't
Uh,
want to like explain it to you if you don't.
no, no, I know what it's
Yes.
about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it's like a bunch of
right.
different directors doing stuff, which is so cool. It's like Guillermo del Toro for letting other people create stuff on his money. Um, but there's a specific one that I don't remember what it's called. Um, uh, Let me see if I can find it because I like the way it looks a lot. Um, and I think it's got sort of similar. It's called The Murmuring, uh, which is about a bunch of birds because apparently a group of these birds is called a murmur. I forget what birds it is. They're not like starlings, but they're like similar birds that like flock in interesting patterns. I'm not going to be able to find a good clip of it, but unless I find it on YouTube. But the thing is, it's like sort of around a similar time period to this,
Mhm.
um, and it's shot in a uh, different ratio. Trying to find a good. Oh my gosh, that just it was like a bong right in my ears when it started playing. Could I share my screen, or maybe I can send this clip to you in the chat,
Yeah.
whatever you want.
Yeah, just send it to me in the chat. I can.
The ratio is a little bit different because I did manipulate it for um YouTube, but I like the coloring of it. I just I know it's very blue, and I think like uh it just also because of all of those scenes where we have on the beach and stuff. There's so many scenes in this
Yeah.
little short that take place on a beach as well. And so I just keep thinking about like this. It's almost like a soft. I like the like softness of the like resolution and the coloring and stuff like that. I think if we were going to do color for the beach scene, something
Okay.
similar to that.
Yeah. Well, I think what we should do is we should shoot it all in magic hour and then just put it in black and white.
I swear to God, if you're like, we need to film at very, very specific times and then have it mean absolutely nothing. I'm stealing the film camera and I'm going to Europe.
You ever see? I think it's a he's a Japanese filmmaker, and he shot the entire film during magic hour. It took like 2 years to make because he could
Uh-uh.
only shoot like 2 hours a day. It's a beautiful film because it's all like reds and blues and it's all like sunrise and sunset. But
So it actually mattered for this film.
it did matter for that film.
Ugh.
Yeah, but yeah, there's too many beach scenes to shoot at all because we'd have to do it. Because I think we have 30 days in total to shoot. So and we need at least 21 for the kitchen. So at most we have like 8 days for the beach. I don't I'm not sure how many days we'll actually need for the beach. Probably need at least 5, I imagine. I don't know. Hard to say. I'm sure Lauren will figure it
It's like her job, isn't it, or something? Yeah.
out. Yeah. Oh, I gotta so I'm producing the short film right now.
Mm.
And he just sent me the shot list for Friday, or his like first iteration of the shot list, because we have a DP, but the DP doesn't write the shot list. The director does, and we have 8 hours to shoot at this location, and he wants 24 shots.
They better be quick.
I was like, "There's no way! That's less than 30 minutes a shot,
Yeah.
like 20 minutes a shot. That's insane. There's no way. There's no world." And it's uh it's 6 pages of dialogue.
Yeah. I'm sure you'll do just fine.
I texted him, I'm like, we got to cut this. Like, you got to cut like half. Like, it has to be like 12 at most. And he's like, nah, we'll just go in order and just shoot what we can. I'm like, there's no way.
He's like,
But
no.
but you know what? He's the boss man. So whatever he says goes. So I'll be
Nobody
interested to
films.
see.
Nobody films things in order anyway.
He does. This is the last shoot of this project, and I worked with him on his last project too. And he's a chemist. He's an engineer, like a chemical engineer. So he's very like ABCD.
Mm.
We've shot everything in order, much to my dismay. It drives me insane, but he refuses to shoot out of order. So
I
I mean, not even
guess.
like not even like the day of we have to shoot in order. It's like the first thing we shot for this project was the first scene in the movie, and
Yeah.
like this is the last scene in the movie. It's wild.
I guess it helps the actors stay. They're like, I know exactly what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, there's directors that do it. I know Alejandro Gonzalez loves to shoot in order, so to each their own, I guess.
I mean, if we decide to go along the route of being like, okay, the kitchen's going to like steadily,
We'll have to
you
shoot it in order.
we'd have to
Yeah.
shoot at least the kitchen scenes in order, except for like the last one when you want the kitchen to look
Right.
like the original, so, but like
Yeah, so
besides that, like,
day
obviously
of we
it's
don't need to shoot in order, right?
right. Yeah, it can be all right. Well, we definitely know that the scene's gonna take the fucking longest, so get that one out of the way.
Yeah. It's a really I've never been on a set like this before because it's not only we shoot everything in order, it's like he'll shoot the wide for that specific dialogue, and then he'll want like, oh, we have the next thing we have to shoot is like the close up for this thing, and then we'll cut back to, and then we have to shoot a wide again for the next shot. It's it's wild. I don't. I mean, he's got a really weird mind in a really fun way, and his sets are fun to work on. But I've never worked on a set quite like it before.
So inefficient.
So
I've never worked on such an inefficient set before. My God. Put a theater stage manager in that man's presence and they'll get him whipped into shape. No time. God. Absolutely
Yeah.
insane. Yes.
Yeah. It's tough. It's a tough story to tell properly and to
Mm,
tell, in a way that, because like,
respectful.
yeah, and on top of all that, they've shown that whenever there's a publicized story, especially a nationally publicized story of a suicide rates tend to go up, like both in the
Mm,
city and nationally.
hmm.
So obviously we don't want that. So but
No.
it, it's a really important story, in my humble opinion, to tell, because it's a representation of a person who suffered with, this really challenging thing that went unrecognized, right? And in the Nobel Prize winning biography, which if you haven't read it, uh, it's
Mm-mm.
a really great read. If you like biographies, if you don't like biographies, you're not going to like it. But it's called Red Comet. I think it's like Red Comet, the story of Sylvia Plath, or something like that.
Yeah.
And really beautiful and well written biography and respectful biography of Sylvia Plath and her life. And there's like a lot of different reasons speculated in the book of why she may have done what she did in the end.
Hmm.
And part of it is that she was supposed to be institutionalized the next day. So after
Mm.
she had first tried to complete suicide when she was 19, she was put in an institution and went through electroshock therapy and insulin therapy, which insulin therapy is fucking insane. The idea is like they just pump you full of insulin and just like see what happens. They'd
This
also do, yeah, it obviously it didn't work, but they tried it.
okay.
And she went through something called heat therapy, which is they'd put you in like water that's like 120 degrees, and then they'd immediately put you in like a ice
Oh,
water, and they'd go back and forth. And they do this thing called salt therapy, which is where they would fill this like tub full of salt and they'd put you in it, so it would get you like super like dehydrated. And
turn you into like cured meat.
pretty much, I mean, just like some of the things that they did to Sylvia Plath and so many others during that time, it's so wild. And of course, when she was going to go in the second time, that was like during like the heyday of things like the orbital lobotomy and things of that nature. And there was a real possibility that had Sylvia Plath gone back to the institution, that she would have been lobotomized.
Lobotomized.
I mean that's not like necessarily the case, but it was, a possibility, and that is a very terrifying thing. And so you kind of have to take that into perspective, but also recognize that like, but you can't also say like, you know, because of that, like it was from fear that she completed suicide. Like there's a lot of factors, right, that went into play to
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, it probably was just like, all the buildup of all those years of dealing with that and then the threat of having to potentially deal with it again, I think anybody would be like, yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors that played into it, but I think at the core of it, at the core of everything, which you can't truly know, but at least in the story, right, the script, the film, the core of it is that the act of living, just in and of itself, is too overstimulating. The very act of
Mhm.
living is just, and this idea of, because she suffered with bipolar, and so this idea that when you're in these depressive states, that it's which is not often well shown in films. Films aren't very good at it because it's a hard thing to express properly. But in these depressed states, it's not a sense of feeling sad, right? It's that sense of nothingness, right? It's
Yeah.
the sense of wanting to feel something, which is why so many, bipolar has one of the highest rates of suicide of any mental disorder. And ironically enough, it also has one of the largest portions of people who fail to take their medication. So it's kind of doubled on top of all that. And I mean, she was on lithium back in 1963, but lithium is a very intense drug. They still prescribe it to some people, but like not nearly as prolific as it was
Yeah.
back in the 1960s, which also may have, although it's speculated that she wasn't taking her medication for like the last several months. So, but then getting
Yeah.
off of, if you're on lithium and then you get off of it, that can also create like a serious major depressive incident. So there's a lot of things going on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also, like, I would assume, like, with bipolar disorder that, like, um, the depressive episodes would be even worse because of the manic episodes. Because
Mm-hmm.
there's like this duality of like, oh, well, this is what I could be feeling. Not that like manic episodes feel good, but that like the up of like, high energy and like stuff like that versus the just down of like absolutely
Yeah.
like
And it's,
nothing. Oop.
no, I mean, that's, yeah, I think that that does make it all the harder, and just this desire to just kind of be at this, just this average plane, right, where
Yeah,
most people exist, is a real desire. And I think but then like, if you're given the medication to be at that, it feels, because you don't have those manic states, it feels very kind of,
like a plateau,
yeah. So
yeah. I think another person it would be interesting to do a film similar to this would be Sarah Kane. Um, she was a British playwright of like the
mhm,
new brutalism era in like the 90s and stuff. And she also committed suicide while she was in the hospital.
mhm,
Um, but I think it would be interesting to like look at her work and then
yeah,
also at her life because outside of like the theater realm, like not very many people
mhm,
know about her, and her work is like absolutely insane.
yeah,
Like she wrote some crazy, crazy stuff.
yeah.
She's really cool. I love her stuff, but
Sorry.
yeah.
Okay.
She only
Yeah.
wrote like a total of like 5 plays because she
Oh,
died when she
geez.
was like, I don't know, she was pretty young,
Hmm.
but she was like younger than 27, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But
Yes.
her plays are there's like it's like the whole thing of like new brutalism was like
Hmm.
showing all of the brutal and uh the gritty sides of humanity
Hmm.
and not downplaying any of it. And
Yeah.
so in the first play that she wrote, a bomb goes off on stage. Um, people eat a baby. There's
Jesus.
like a guy like gets his eyes like sucked out and devoured on stage, and it's like insane. They're crazy. And yeah, it's sort of she started to sort of tone it down. Not in regards to like gore, I would say she started to like tone it down
Hmm.
later on, but then instead of it being like there's all this stuff happening to people, it turned into more like introspective sort of dark stuff like a lot of people say that her last play 448 Psychosis is like her suicide note, which
Hmm.
is, obviously a lot of people like to look at an artist's work and,
Right.
immediately say that it's a direct representation of that person's psyche or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but the uh the play itself has no characters. It's just a lot of there's no stage directions, there's no character names, there's nothing. It's just
Hmm.
like words or sometimes numbers just written on a page.
Hmm.
And it's like poems about like all sorts of different stuff
Yeah.
that Sarah was probably dealing with. It's really good. It's really good stuff. If anything, I would just suggest that you should like look into her because she's really interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't think I haven't read or seen any of her work, but I think we've
Well,
talked about that last play before
in
a little bit.
America,
Uh-huh.
people don't produce her work.
Oh, shocker. Of
Germans do though. Germans love Sarah
course
Kane.
they do.
Of course they do. But yeah, no, usually Americans don't produce her work very often, except for maybe at experimental collegiate level.
Hmm.
But the National Theatre in England has done some of her work. Yeah.
Okay.
And then Germans love it because they're into that kind of stuff. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Sylvia. So it's rumored that Sylvia Plath had completed her second novel before she passed away, but either Ted Hughes or Aurelia, her mother,
Hmm.
burned the like final
Manuscript.
manuscript. So it's lost. But it was supposed to be like it was supposed to be a it was actually supposed to be a sequel to the Bell Jar. So the Bell Jar, of course, was about in many ways about Sylvia Plath's first experience with institutionalization, and the second novel was supposed to be about like what happened after she got out of the institution.
Mm,
But never know. It's I mean it's gone to the annals
yeah,
of history. It's a shame.
it's a shame. Too many, too many taken from us. Yeah.
Yeah, what a lovely way to okay. Well, okay, cool. Yeah. So okay, well I think that's
Right. It's good talk.
and I'm gonna email Kevin right now because otherwise I'm gonna forget. So